my pleasure to be here and to have us gather in person. One of the major purposes of today's gathering is the importance, sharing and collaboration and launching of new initiatives that will come from the sharing about your work that you do individually, that work that you do collaboratively, and the work that you could be doing as a result of today's conference, which will be very important. I'll be very interested in learning the outcomes of today and tomorrow because they inform not only NERI, but they will inform other scientific networks that we feel are critical to move quickly at speed and scale to go from basic research, fundamental engineering research, to implementation in individuals, communities, and other agencies. So thank you. We will learn from you as well. It's my honor to welcome you to the Natural Hazards Research Summit. And let me start by thanking the organizers, because in this day and age, it's not easy to arrange for an in-person meeting, and I want to thank you for helping to build and connect this important multidisciplinary community. This summit is a first. It's a first cross-cutting meeting of natural hazards researchers and the people behind the NSF's Natural Hazards Engineering Research Infrastructure, or NERI as we call it. Although NERI formed in 2015, as Julio said, NSF has provided substantial support for natural hazards engineering research for many years. The goal of the summit today, to catalyze coordination, collaboration, and visioning for the future natural hazards research and to define those ambitious next steps that must be taken using the NERI Science Plan as the foundation. NSF recognizes the importance of research in natural hazards, the collaboration that this network defines to really move forward on disaster research, which are essential to the future prosperity and well-being of the people across the entire nation. The impacts of what you do are multiplied through coordination, but also through your dedication to train the next generation of researchers. These natural hazards will not end. They increase in frequency and in magnitude. So we must be training the next generation of researchers with attention to those from underrepresented groups and underrepresented regions of our country. Let me take this opportunity to share my appreciation of all that you do and your commitment, your creativity, your research, and yes, your intrepid resilience yourselves. Thank you. Because natural hazards did not end during a pandemic. So how do we keep research moving and facilities moving forward, even virtual facilities, during a pandemic? We saw that resilience in the NERI facilities that during the COVID-19 pandemic, NSF worked with users and their research projects and your institutions to figure out how to keep research moving forward. And today, all the NERI facilities fully reopened since the pandemic are truly committed to serving their users and the broader research community of our nation. This year, I had the privilege of visiting two NERI facilities, the Wall of Wind at FIU and the Outdoor Shake Table at UCSD. These visits helped me appreciate the importance of how you operate such a large facility that's available to many, but also, as someone who is already engaged in my own research, in the tight integration between models, actual research, and idealized experiments in controlled settings, I understood the tight integration when I stood in the Wall of Wind and there was a model of a trailer park sitting in front of me between those experimental models in very controlled environments of these NERI facilities, the ephemeral field data that the NERI network collects in real-world events in real time, and the computational models that are used by this network to both validate those models, they integrate those data sets, real world and in the NERI facilities, to validate those models and to use them to predict interactions between aspects of the events, but also to test interventions. This is important work that we're doing that takes a broad range of researchers to come together and integrate and collaborate. So important. The NERI facilities are recognized by NSF as being the jewels in NSF's crown. Just on Tuesday, I mentioned the work that was done most recently during Hurricane Ian and during the Yellowstone flooding in a meeting of the executive leadership team at NSF. We meet every week. This week we were asked to highlight things from each of our directorates, and I featured NERI quite prominently. We're very proud of the work that you do. As individuals, you've actually embraced the idea of problem-driven fundamental research and taking a convergent approach to make progress at speed and scale. You and your predecessors have made breakthroughs in both research, the research facilities, and you've saved so many lives over the decade and reduced economic impact already. And you, as a community, we can learn from you. Why? Because you also ensure that your research findings become technologies, practices, codes and standards, resilience and response plans, and evidence-based advice that go to individual households, communities, businesses, and also government agencies, local and more broad. Thank you. We need to amplify what you do, help you do what you do, but also share what you're doing with other communities beyond the natural hazards research. So we stand to learn from NERI and to celebrate NERI's successes and to propel you further. Through NSF's facilities like NERI, our centers, our programs in innovation and technology, NSF long has sought to accelerate the development of technology from fundamental research to move innovations into practice and to create those partnerships that make it all happen. And that's why we're so excited that this year we launched TIP, or the Technology Engineer Innovation and Partnership Directorate. TIP is taking exciting new approaches to accelerating economic impact of our fundamental research that NSF funds. It's about a strategic mindset that really supercharges research outcomes to speed the cycle from discovery in your laboratories and in the field to innovation and research that translates quickly into practical applications. You see that NERI network stands to gain from the TIP Directorate, okay? So TIP will work across all programs at NSF and other federal agencies, industries, universities, as well as international partners to expedite technology development and focus on emerging areas that are crucial for tackling challenges of tomorrow. We're synergizing our efforts across all of NSF to unleash technology and innovation at speed and scale. TIP is an important aspect of that strategy. The work that you do is timely and urgent. As Julio mentioned, the recent experience of devastating effects of Hurricane Fiona in Puerto Rico, Hurricane Ian in Florida, I might add that's very personal for us. I've been going to Sanibel Island for over 40 years, a timeshare that my parents bought in 1981. And so these effects are devastating. As we learn more about how to reduce these effects in disasters and understand about disasters that are occurring at increasing intensity and increasing frequency, we need to focus on that intersection between climate trends, construction and land use practices, and population migration towards coastal communities. We predict that more homes and businesses will be in harm's way with each year in the future. The Engineering Research Visioning Alliance, or ERVA, is an NSF-funded activity that was just launched this past year. They released a report over the summer about how the engineering community can address climate change with the highest impact. One of the 4 main areas highlighted was resilient and energy efficient and healthful infrastructure. NERI clearly is centrally in those crosshairs. NSF and the federal government are acutely aware of the importance of disaster threats and their inequitable burden, and they've been highlighted in several very recent and very public ways. This year, the OMB, OSTP Research and Development Priorities Memo, which is actually signaling the White House priorities for the year to come, included significant concern about disaster resilience and encouraged all federal agencies to focus on conduct and on work to address these disasters that are mitigated through research, and to really understand the climate threat relationship, particularly how that is enhanced in current times, and how to create approaches and solutions that focus on the equity and avoid discrimination and economic hardships in the solutions that we identify. Resilience in the built and natural environments will certainly be an increasing important priority in fiscal year 23. And I encourage you to look at that memo because it's featured quite prominently. Similarly, the new CHIPS and Science Act that was just passed in August directs the NSF to fund a range of risk and resilience activities, including new engineering solutions and also multidisciplinary research to understand the economic, and importantly, just because we create it doesn't mean it will be accepted. Those behavioral science and technology adoption sciences, because we must understand them if we're going to increase the number of individuals and communities who actually utilize the results of the research to mitigate the effects of natural disasters moving forward. Of course, the NSF collaborates with other agencies to accomplish this. NSF is one of 4 agencies that are congressionally mandated to create an interagency unit that is entitled the National Earthquake Hazards Reduction, or NEHRP. The National Windstorm Impact Reduction Agency is a multi-agency effort. And all of the NSF awards for the NERI facilities and research that uses the NERI facilities contributes to NSF's role in these 2 important interagency efforts. NSF and NIST are now working together on a second round of collaborative disaster resilience research grants, and that program has been very successful. NSF is also working with NIST, as you well know, in the past for the Champlain Tower South building failure. 2 NERI facilities provided the critical equipment for that project, and we're very proud of the University of Washington and the University of Texas Austin, and we are supporting further investigations this year. But as you all well know, natural hazards research is not just a U.S. challenge. It's a global challenge, and countries are partnering with the U.S. to study earthquakes, windstorms, and other hazards. Just recently, Canada felt the impact of Hurricane Fiona on its Atlantic shores, and NSF and the government agencies from other countries are partnering together to provide access. So as an example, I want to remind you that Japan's Earth Defense, or E-Defense shake table, is available to U.S. investigators to use. We look for more opportunities for those international partnerships that benefit the U.S. and to create opportunities for global investigators to benefit from the U.S. investments. I personally have admired the way that this community has focused on the next generation and focused on collaboration and focused on importance of equity in the solutions as you create international as well as U.S. economic impact. When you collaborate, it's not just sharing field equipment. It's not just collaborating to use the NERI facilities. It's also about sharing information and ideas about research gaps. That's what's happening today and tomorrow. But also sharing the data and the computational tools that you use through the cyber facilities, such as DesignSafe and the SIM Center. These are important additional mechanisms to share practices and share information and share data. Another way that we can increase innovation at scale and speed is to cultivate the diverse workforce, not just of today, those investigators here who might not have been at this meeting several years ago because they're new to our community, but also those investigators of tomorrow. We need to cultivate a diverse workforce if we're really to have the broadest impact. NSF has a unique role in advancing education and broadening participation in engineering fundamental and translational research. We have many long-standing programs that we encourage you to take advantage of. We're going to highlight just a few, because if you're not currently taking advantage of them, we want to make sure that you do. We support formal and informal science and engineering education, outreach activities, as well as workshops. We also support workforce development through research experiences for undergraduates, research experiences for teachers, and research experiences for mentors. And the NERI Research Experiences for Undergrads program has been run by the network and most recently provides support for about 30 students a year. I'm very proud of what you're doing, and you're a shining example of what other facilities can be doing. So in sum, NSF wishes you a wonderful and productive meeting, speedy progress on your research and translation from fundamental research to applications to practice in our communities and across the world. Remember, we need your work and your effort and your collaboration with us to push for the adoption of your findings of new technologies into standards and practices. The current administration recognizes the importance of the work that you're doing, and we are the wind at your back to help you succeed in the work that you do. We're committed to moving forward together with you and to create a safer tomorrow. Have a productive meeting. Thank you.